Hi everyone, good morning. Today we have a very interesting webinar here on our cnPilot webinar series. We've got the team here. We've got Chris, the CTO of Inviacom, and Sam Besker from GX2. Sam and Chris are going to be sharing with us uh, talk a little bit about their deployment. And like a lot of our cnPilot series, we're going to be talking very practically about stuff that we've been doing around the world. But I also recognize that a lot of people who are on this call today are new to Cambium and in many cases new to cnPilot. So we'd like to start off with a brief introduction of what cnPilot is, what we've been doing in the last couple of years, and then we'll transition to our guests on this webinar to share their experiences. Chris and Sam, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Chaitan.
So for some of you have seen this slide, but for those who are new to Cambium, basically Cambium Networks, as many of you know, is a global company. We've got 4 R&D headquarters. Those are those little green circles that you see there, headquartered out of Chicago. Many folks like myself and others on the Wi-Fi team are based in San Jose, California. And then in addition to that, we've got team members in the UK and in Bangalore, India. In the last 3 years that we've been around, we've deployed cnPilot in over 140 countries. That's practically pretty much around the world. And Cambium as a company, given our Motorola heritage, we've shipped over 8 million radios to date. And we've really done this with the help of many of you folks, our valued channel partners. And today we count over 4,000 channel partners in our base. And given our motto of connecting people, places, and things, we're practically growing across the world in different areas, from service providers to indoor and outdoor communication, industrial communications, federal, defense, state and local government. And that practically covers almost all aspects of Cambium's of the communication world, with everything from wireline ISPs, wireless ISPs, education, hospitality, oil and gas, agriculture, and national border protection, municipal safety, you name it, and there's probably a Cambium radio equipment somewhere around the world that's a part of a critical communications link. And in that family of Cambium equipment, cnPilot's been around for the last 3 years. And in those 3 years, we've grown our portfolio across the board, bringing new indoor and outdoor Wi-Fi products, including our latest products, the 430W wall plate access point and the E700 outdoor access point. And like all of our products, these are controlled from cnMaestro. cnMaestro is the controller in the cloud, and it's available as a virtual software on-prem. And I think Sam will talk a little bit about cnMaestro on-prem because they use the on-prem services. Chris will describe the cnMaestro cloud, which they use in their deployment. And if you look at Wi-Fi, there are different architectures available around the world. And if you think of the evolution of Wi-Fi, you know, and I've been long around to see this evolution take place. From thin APs, we started with APs being pretty much dumb. Everything was happening at the controller. Along the way, we swung to a controller-led model, but the controller was on-prem on a server box. And then along came folks like Aerohive and others with smart edge APs, which were completely controllerless. And then folks like Meraki made the cloud managed AP quite famous. So what we've done is, having only come into this about 3 years ago, and many of us having worked in different Wi-Fi vendors, we've taken kind of the best of all of these worlds. our APs are cloud managed, but controller free APs. So what do we mean by controller free APs? What that means is basically the AP is dependent on the controller for things like configuration, monitoring, software upgrade, troubleshooting. All of these things are controller led because that gives you the powerful ability of doing everything centrally. On the other hand, things like roaming or dynamic channel selection, load balancing, all of these things that happen at an AP level is locally managed by the APs collaborating with their neighborhood APs. So the access points in the case of cnPilot are autonomous, and features like roaming happen in a controller-less fashion. In fact, with our roaming feature, up to 1,000 clients you can roam across the APs without having to go to the controller. So that reduces the latency, it increases the efficiency of the operation, and it makes the architecture highly resilient. At the central brain controlling all of these Wi-Fi APs is cnMaestro. cnMaestro gives you a couple of different abilities. With a cloud-first architecture and a free cloud, there's really no licensing requirement. It's really the default option that we recommend to most of our customers, especially where the cloud is locally present or easily accessible with good internet connection. I call that the freedom option. You just take our APs, register them in the cloud, and then you can break out, and off you go to the internet. On the other hand, if you've got brownfield deployments or you prefer a much more controlled architecture, you can deploy cnMaestro locally and then tunnel the traffic to the management system, or you can break out the traffic. And that's full control with an on-prem software-led version. That gives you the freedom of putting your own hardware and scaling as you go. So you control the costs in that sense. There's also a third option called autopilot. And that's really for those who don't want the cloud or the complexity of the on-prem software, having to download it onto a VM machine, all of that stuff. And you just want a very small network, up to 30 APs managed locally from a controller. We give you autopilot. And autopilot is very much like a Ruckus Unleashed or Aruba Instant. So really 3 different architectures, all completely controlled in different ways to serve the different needs of our very diverse and geographically dispersed customer base. And the controller, much like any good controller, gives you all of the abilities for onboarding, visualization, monitoring, and troubleshooting. And then in addition to all of the basic stuff that you expect from any good controller, we've also packed in some very powerful guest access features built into the controller. With a portal, ability to do text-based SMS authentication, PayPal integration, and credit card integration. In addition to that, we're seeing a very interesting trend, and some of our guest speakers will talk to this in managed services. So we're especially focusing cnMaestro on developing a managed services friendly feature with role-based access and the ability to customize the portal to your guest needs so that your guests see your branded portal. And so today MSP is available in our on-prem version. And then in addition to that, we have APIs, which currently we have read-only APIs with write APIs, probably coming in in a month or 2 in our next release of cnMaestro. And then we're also continually improving our reporting capabilities. So what you have is basically a full featured controller with the ability to scale. With the cloud, you get high availability built in. And with the on-prem, you get the full flexibility and power to integrate with your local backend software. So in addition to all of these customizable capabilities that are built into cnMaestro, we're also not, however, functioning in a walled garden. We recognize that there are lots of other backend stuff like Purple Wi-Fi or Cloud4V and some of these brand name portals that offer above and beyond capabilities. And so we're integrated with all of these other options as well. So this gives you the power of using built-in software if your needs are simpler, and the power to expand and bring in third-party backend software and we've verified that we interoperate with a whole bunch of these different backend vendors. So in the years that we've been there, we've expanded across the board to hospitality, education, retail, public Wi-Fi, events, and managed services. And so the next little bit, I'll just go through a quick tour of the different ways we've grown. One of our earliest deployments last year was in schools, where we've now expanded to over 31 schools in the UK. And that's just one sample point. In the US, in Wisconsin, we've got the Plymouth School District that is now entirely on cnPilot Wi-Fi. We're also doing a lot of unique deployments. For example, ski lifts and resorts in Italy. We've got a fantastic video on YouTube. If you were to go in there and Google for Cambium ski lift and resort, you'll see a video out of Italy where cnPilot is used on the outdoors and inside those little ski lifts to bring complete connectivity all the way from the base to the mountaintop. And then at the mountaintop, you've got Wi-Fi connectivity indoors and outdoors, so people can take photographs and post to Facebook and all of the stuff that then attracts a lot more crowd to these ski lifts, especially the younger crowd. One of the other verticals that we're very pleased to report that we're starting to see a lot of activity is in food chains and small and medium retail business. Johnny Rockets in Brazil, that's an actual photograph from one of the Johnny Rocket franchisees, where cnPilot APs are used to provide folks with iPads to order the food, and then you can also select the music. This being Brazil, that's a very interesting use case where people can order the food and then wait for, and while they're waiting for the food to come, they can listen to music. One of the other verticals that we have started to grow, especially in the last 8 months, has been in the hospitality industry. We recently did a Holiday Inn last year in Indonesia, 100+ hotel rooms comprising of indoor and outdoor access points, covering the swimming pools. We've recently done a Radisson property in India, 126 hotel room guests, over 1,000 guest conference rooms covered with our latest wall plate AP and the E410 in common areas. Now, as many of you, especially those of you who've been in the Wi-Fi business know, nothing speaks to Wi-Fi's capability as much as proving that it works in a high density and a very demanding situation. So we took up a project in India where we did a high density stadium coverage. This was 27,000 spectator area coverage. This was phase 1 and over 5,000 staff. And it's a 3-hour game of cricket. And in those 3 hours, the system did a total exchange of about 1 terabyte of data, uplink and downlink included. And those circled things that you see there, those are our outdoor hotspots, low profile, flattish looking E502 sector antennas, sector access points with a 30-degree antenna coverage. So that gives you good frequency reuse. It allows you to balance the load across these access points. And we covered not only these main seating areas, but also the VIP enclosures, the press boxes, and mostly it was for people to use this for uploading videos and downloading the scores and watching replays. So we're very pleased to see that having done this, we're now in the works in another high capacity stadium that I hope to share with you all shortly. So if you look at all of these deployments, and you step back from just cnPilot, obviously cnPilot is the edge access from Cambium. It allows you to bring wireless connectivity at the edge to the indoor enterprise, outdoor hotspots, and to the ISP managed home. And but Cambium has a much more unique benefit. Obviously, where there's fiber, you can connect these access points with fiber, but where you have a difficult time using fiber, you can bring in equipment like ePMP or our point-to-point links and provide last mile access. And of course, we hold one of the highest distance records for long distance backhaul, over 246 kilometers. There's a YouTube video out there showing HD voice and traffic going over 246 kilometers. So that gives us the long distance backhaul as well. So we call this our 246 to 2 meter wireless connectivity solutions. So you get all of these three different components. And the best part of it is CN Maestro is the management solution across all of these properties. So that's, and of course, I think the microwave ones are still on the roadmap, but this is our vision and this is the plan to which we're marching in terms of connectivity. One single wireless fabric managed from a central management and control system. And one of the best ways to demonstrate and prove that this works has been with our partner Facebook. As some of you may have noted, Cambium recently put out a press release where we were recognized as one of the first Wi-Fi vendors to join Facebook's Express Wi-Fi system. Express Wi-Fi is something that Facebook out of US is investing in to bring Wi-Fi connectivity to unconnected parts of the world with their ISP partners. And so they've tested Cambium for a while, and we're very pleased to support their protocols. And now we're expanding around the world in India, Indonesia, Kenya, and Nigeria. And these are Wi-Fi networks that are backed by wireless backhaul in many cases. One of our other largest deployments has been over 10,000 access points in India, spread across 25 cities. That's an actual shot from a field installation there. And all of these access point networks are managed by multiple admin and operators out of a single administrative location. And so what you see here is basically a very fast growth across different verticals. And that was just a quick tour of what we've been up to. And so all of this is now starting to garner some recognition out of the Wispapalooza in 2017. The channel CRN magazine rates our channel partner program as one of the top channel partner programs. And IDC have recently named us as one of the top 3 vendors to watch. So what you get beyond Cambium is not just the product story, but also a very rich support option with field engineers, 24/7 community support, and a team that has done Wi-Fi and cellular successfully for over 2 decades. And we are a profitable company that continuously invests in organic growth and continues to believe that R&D is the key driver for all of our growth. So hopefully that gives everyone here a good introduction to what Cambium are. Let me pause there for a second and just take a quick look to see if there are any questions along the way. Okay, I don't see any questions here, but if you have any questions, please do type on the webinar panel and we'd be happy to pause and take questions. So with that, I'd like to kind of segue from talking about ourselves to something more interesting, which is our customers using our products in the real world. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Chris from Inviacom. Chris, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
So Chris, maybe if you could help some of us understand who Inviacom are.
Yeah, so in Viacom, we are a managed network service provider that focuses on campus deployments in the senior living space. As you see from the slide here, we deliver, one of our core offerings is blanket Wi-Fi. And what blanket Wi-Fi is the ability to deploy a seamless Wi-Fi cloud across the campus that will support the operations staff, the medical or clinical users, along with residents and their guests. So we essentially deploy a large-scale hotspot type deployment. We span the United States. We're in about 110 campuses with over 20,000 subscribers. And yeah, so that's that's essentially who we are. We design, we deploy, we manage, and offer all the customer support for these environments. And as you can imagine, it's quite a challenge when you're working in a bring your own device environment like we are.
Chris, that's a very interesting term. We've got wireless fabric and you've got blanket Wi-Fi. So clearly you're going for an approach where you're looking for that Wi-Fi to be kind of an all-encompassing connectivity solution. And you kind of mentioned that you support multiple layers. What exactly are these layers? And in some of your cases, do they cover both the customers and the staff?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Our base offering, we offer 4 wireless networks across the entire campus. As I had touched upon, we support the operations staff. A lot of times it's your administration, your maintenance staff in their iPads and Android tablets in their work order systems. We're also supporting the medical and clinical staff for the caretakers that are out attending to the senior residents in their tablets and laptops and countless Wi-Fi enabled devices. But then our third and fourth, which are probably their just as important network and folks we support, are the campus residents and their guests.
And so as you do these things, do you notice a need for how do you control priority levels? How do you assign? How do you manage that? Do you guys have your own backend management? How does that
Yeah,
interact with
so we manage it all through obviously segmenting it across multiple VLANs and QoSing it accordingly, both at the wireless edge and through our backend infrastructure, but also the amount of how much bandwidth each resident device can use, we manage on, again, in our own backend Radisson authentication server that ties into our router and switch infrastructure.
Interesting. And especially with something where you are the connectivity layer for a medical operation, what do you guys do to keep keep the service level up? What exactly is your monitoring system with Cambium and then beyond Cambium?
Yeah, so we have a couple different layers, and the reason why we went with Cambium, one of the many reasons why we went with Cambium cnPilot was obviously the cnMaestro platform. And one of our first deployments, we, as you alluded to, went to utilize the cloud version of cnMaestro. Not only do we use the cnPilot, but we're also an ePMP for our multi-point out. As you can see in this campus view, we have to also deliver that bandwidth not only within the multi-dwelling buildings, but then out to the outer edges, to the duplexes. So we do need to deliver that, and by doing that, or how we do that, is over the ePMP product. So the cnMaestro is key to not only provisioning and monitoring and managing our devices, but it's also a great tool because it gives us one pane of glass to work with our devices, not only the cnPilot, but the ePMP. So it's been extremely valuable. And then also we utilize third-party SNMP for more deeper dive into the SNMP type data to deliver to our back-end reporting system.
And how long have some of these been operational?
Well, we've been in business since 2001 and been delivering these networks ever since then. We've been working with a cnPilot product now for just over a year. And the particular campus here, that slide we pulled up, this campus has been online for approximately a year now. It's 42 acre campus, 260 units. We're delivering not only throughout the interior of the buildings, but also we have the ability to deliver to key common areas around the campus on an as needed basis, utilizing both the ePMP and the cnPilot products.
Very interesting. And I must admit, even I was not aware of the complexity and the challenge that you guys have solved here. So thank you for that. I see that there's a lot of audience interest here as you've been talking. So I've got a couple of audience questions that I'm going to relay to you. One question is, with something of this nature, having ePMP, cnPilot, and all of these different requirements across these customer base that you serve, how do you manage channel interference?
Well, yeah, that's always a challenge. A lot of these campuses, not only do we have to deal with outside other interferences that are out of our control, but we also need to try to watch and mitigate our own potential self-interference. We do quite a bit of testing and surveying with survey tools like Ekahau's Site Survey Pro is our tool of choice, where once we deploy the network and we can look to do periodic checks to see how the impacts are. But also the cnPilot dashboard does an excellent job of letting us drill down to the end user device to be able to understand our signal to noise ratios at the each device level. So that's also a key indicator as to if we are running into interference on the particular frequencies.
Thank you. And I see there's a couple of other questions. There's another question on analytics. I think this was a general question for Cambium, but maybe I'll ask you in the context of this product. You'd mentioned cnMaestro and your own systems. What kind of analytics or what kind of reports do you look for, and what do you use those reports for?
Well, in our particular environment, we try to deliver our own executive summary, kind of a higher level utilization of the network, bandwidth utilization. Much of that is captured on our back-end Radisson server solution, where we can report kind of our worth to our customers. We want to be proactive and not wake up and find out or have our customers come to us and say, what are you doing for us? So, more of executive level type reporting is very key. And then from, a network sizing and keeping our arms around to make sure our networks are still robust and able to support the masses, because we generally will go into a campus and it'll start off supporting, let's say, 200 devices, and we find a year down the road now we have triple the devices or sometimes 5 times the devices on our network. So we're also taking those metrics and making sure that we're expanding our networks on an as needed basis.
Thank you. I see a lot of questions coming in. Let's take one more question, and then maybe we'll defer some of these questions again towards the end. There are a couple of questions on what does Cambium have for a tool for generating wireless coverage and heat maps. Cambium as such, we don't provide our own tools, but what we do is we support all of the popular tools. Chris mentioned Ekahau. We support Ekahau, so if you will find a Cambium library file for Ekahau, we also support Air Magnet and we also support IBWave. So those are the three popular planning tools and coverage tools that we support. One last question for you, Chris, and then we'll transition to Sam. You mentioned a 42-acre campus. So Bruce would like to know how many APs are you running and how do you blanket your coverage, 80%, 90%? And then a second follow-up question, with 20,000 users, how many customer service calls do you typically take in a given time period?
Okay, if you want to forward, I think we had the one slide, it had the, okay, yeah, so the 42-acre wooded campus, 260 units. We have approximately, I believe, let me pull it up, it's 155 E410s with another 10 E500s for outdoor common areas. There we go. 151 E410s. Our multi-point is distributed over three AP2000s and 248 remote buildings. So that kind of gives you a gauge. Obviously, you know, it's going to vary based on the construction materials you're working with. In the multi-dwelling unit, this particular campus had a mix of stick-built and then some older plaster with chicken mesh. You know, obviously different types of materials will attenuate your signal, so sometimes you have to beef up your AP coverage. As far as our coverage, we generally, most of our deployments are done down the common hallways, but we are finding where we're installing an access point on a one-to-one basis in every single resident living unit.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. I'm just keeping an eye on time here. And so in the interest of time, I'd like to maybe pause here, and my apologies for those whose questions we can't take on this call. What we will do is we'll compile the answers and send them out to all the participants offline in case we can't get it. But I'd also like to reserve some time at the end to take some more questions that we perhaps couldn't get to right now. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind, if you can hang on, we'll get to Sam and then we'll come back and take some more questions that might come back at the end.
Okay.
Okay, with that said, Sam, that's your cue, and you've got a very interesting story. It's not just a resort story, but you've got some drama built in as well. It's both a resort story with high drama, and maybe I'll let you take that story from here.
Yeah, thanks, Chetan, and thanks, Chris. Yeah, so Cambium as an access point product for Wi-Fi is still new to us. We were looking for alternatives to kind of our go-to product, just something that's a little more cost-effective to our customers and you know, easy to manage and deploy. GX2 is a Wi-Fi company, a managed service company. We're kind of like two different. We have a software development branch where we build our own product to you know, manage the deployment, offer a custom captive portal, support and ticketing, and then also sort of our operational side that's you know, deployment and structured cabling and putting in Wi-Fi, doing the heat maps and those kind of services. About a year ago, we were acquired by Superloop, and you know, it kind of shook some things up. Superloop is an ISP out of Australia, Um, but yeah, we have about 800 locations worldwide. Our largest footprint is in the east coast of Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Islands, and about 120 locations across the U.S. We specialize in national parks and hospitality specifically. So with the Ocean Pointe project, you know, the customer was very cost conscious. They were very insistent. They didn't want to pay licensing fees, and we've used a lot of Cambium point-to-point, the EPMP solution in a number of our properties, and we thought, well, we really trust it. We really like that product. Let's give the Wi-Fi a shot. I think from a comfort level, we would have preferred to do a small hotel that had like a couple hundred rooms or something, 100-room hotel, a Holiday Inn or something. That would have been great. But circumstances where we were going to do a big project and do 240 some odd access points, and that was just kind of how it worked out. And this particular property is built on protective mangrove reefs. You can't trench and pull fiber between buildings. It's a campus solution, very much like Chris described. So it was a full suite of Cambium products employed to provide a solution. And midway through the design, the hurricane hit. So all of our best laid plans of how we were going to put the solution in place completely got disrupted, and a project that might have taken us a couple weeks ended up taking us close to 6 months to light up and fully solve.
So Sam, one thing that's of interest to some of our audience members here is you've got a very interesting point there that says no cabling to guest rooms. What exactly does that mean, and how exactly did you get Wi-Fi coverage inside the guest rooms in that case?
Yeah, there was no existing cabling. So we had planned for a corridor solution initially. It's a huge problem. In hotels, older hotels, they just did not cable for Cat5 when they were built. So there's even some hotels that are, we see being built today that don't cable for Cat5 for whatever reason. But in that case, the hurricane helped us out because it forced them to reevaluate their strategy, and we actually ended up putting cable to every room. So.
Oh, thank you. So
yeah, I should clarify that point. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry that I was on mute for a minute.
Yeah.
So the solution that you did put in place was that basically putting the Wi-Fi in the corridors, or able to now go ahead and retrofit cabling inside the rooms?
Yeah, no. So the solution, that was kind of a description. Some of that is a mix-up of the previous solution and kind of what we did to address it. So we went then with an access point in every room. Our solution consisted of an access point in every room, and just the nature of things in the coastal regions, the construction nature of those things, they're built to withstand hurricanes. So there's a lot of, as Chris described, it's brick, it's dense brick, and in many cases the chicken wire. So they're not very friendly construction materials to RF. Corridor solutions are in hospitality are kind of going away. If you can imagine, it's typically an AP in the corridor, then it's got to kind of usually go through the bathroom and however many layers of tile, and then where people want to use the Wi-Fi is on the other side or on the balcony. So an in-room solution is what we most encourage our customers to go with, just from a simple standpoint of taking guest support calls. It's just a much better deployment strategy.
We have an audience member here asking, when you go for these in-room solutions, what's the typical DBI that you look for? What do you have a standard that you say this is the DBI that gives good coverage for my guest clients inside the room?
Yeah, look, Neg 65 is where we're shooting for. But in room you can get much better than that. And that's on 5 gig.
On 5 gig.
Yeah.
And so you deploy both 2.4 and 5 gig?
Yeah. For interference, we usually knock off, on every room solution, you get so much co-channel with yourself on 2.4, so we'll limit either the power or the broadcasting on 2.4, and it used to be, I'd say, Chayton, it used to be a little more of a problem, but now you could almost shut 2.4 off everywhere, and you'd barely notice a difference. I'll speak to a couple of those.
Is that your client base? Is that the typical client base that you see in resorts in the U.S. has?
Yeah, that's right. The devices seem to not mind much when it seems like there's a device refresh every birthday and Christmas, or 3 times a year sometimes. So it seems like there's just more and more newer devices that are supporting 5G and handing off, nicely to it. So
I see. And do you do any kind of rate limiting on these devices per room, or limit the number of devices per room? How do you manage the traffic to ensure there's no overload or some level of service level for these?
Yeah, that's right. Throughout most of our locations, and we cut our teeth, especially in the U.S. and Australia, serving very, very rural, underserved areas. The national parks, the center of Australia, the Ayers Rock Resort. These are places that have tremendous bandwidth challenges. So our solution that we put in, we always put our gateway in. We rate limit, using radius attributes to the gateway and to the device, so we can push these profiles from our cloud solution. I know a lot of the vendors have, intrinsic kind of policy management systems there, but we control that, and the guests can at any point say, well, they want people who are paying with a credit card to have a different bandwidth profile. So yeah, we definitely rate limit, and we try to size it based on the pipe coming in.
I see. And it seems like a very popular question that Chris also was asked is, how do you do radio resource management? How do you do dynamic channel selection or transmit power management? Do you manually go in and configure them, or do you have some kind of algorithm, or do you let this system decide?
Yeah,
maybe you could kind of split the answer for the Wi-Fi and for the EPMP.
Yeah, historically, for the Wi-Fi, it becomes quite a nightmare if you have to do this yourself. For 240 APs, if you think you're gonna go and multiple floors and there's bleed through, you it becomes quite challenging to try to think you're smart enough, or even if you are smart enough, to keep managing, what APs are on what channel and try to fight that. Cambium does a great job selecting this for us. We're still learning all of the features. This is a big site deployment and for us, so we haven't encountered the problem that we have had years ago with that kind of situation. The controller can handle it. And if there's a case where we can identify an area that's definitely having that problem, then maybe we'll go in and tweak it on the access point level or the AP Wi-Fi level. But I don't know. Does that give you some insight or help answer your question?
I think it does. So what you're saying is you kind of use a combination where you let the system select first, and then you go in and tweak some of these channels if you think doing so manually gives you a better option. So you use the override option.
Right. And then on the ePMP side, then that's where it's a little more manageable. And you want to make sure you're maximizing the air quality. You're taking advantage of the best possible air quality. The ePMP does a great job of that, but there's also a lot of times where they have their own. Some of these customers might have their own solution in place, and they're on one of the 5.9 channels or something, and 5.8 channels, and you want to make sure you're well clear of those. And those we're a little more careful with how we manage the traffic there.
I see. And for those who are looking at the screen right now, what I think, Sam, you're showing there in the lower half of the screen is a point to multi-point system where you've got a base station that's bringing connectivity to those 4 buildings that you see there.
Right. This is reasonably accurate, but it's just to provide an overview. We used Link Planner to design the backhaul solution, and as I said, there's no cabling between the buildings, or if there was phone cabling there at one point, it's just damaged enough by the hurricane that the throughput that you're getting across it doesn't compare. So there's a couple places missing, but we're also covering the pool area and then a couple point-to-points off to the other side. But this is what's providing the connectivity between the different buildings on this resort. And yeah, there are 3 4-story or 5 4-story buildings and an AP in each room.
Thank you. And all of these, both the ePMP and the cnMaestro is managed from, ePMP and cnPilot are managed from cnMaestro, correct? Yeah,
that's correct. That's a screenshot of our cnMaestro, and just kind of highlighting some of the dashboard features that you have there. And that's just a really nice thing about this product is you have the ePMP and the access points. Now, if you could add switching, that'd be great.
Oh, yep. We'll leave that little secret in the bag for now. And for anyone who's intrigued by Sam's statement, I think you'll all find some announcement related to switching coming up sometime in the next couple of months. So I won't steal the thunder there. We'll wait for that to be announced. So Sam, one final question, and maybe then I'll open the audience for all of the broader questions. If you look at these things that you're monitoring, what kind of reports and what kind of stats do you use? Who are the consumers of these reports? In addition to yourselves, are there others in the business who look for specific reports, maybe every Monday morning? Can you speak a little bit about what kind of reports, whether it's through cnPilot or beyond cnPilot, what kind of reports you gather and keep track of?
Yeah, I'll try to give you a brief description. We have our own product that we give our customers. This is something we spend a lot of development time on. It's a multi-tenanted solution, so Ocean Pointe can nest a number of sites under their tenant. The tenant not being the resident, being the account tenant. So a Holiday Inn might have a number of sites under the Holiday Inn tenant. That's how I mean to describe it. But they can manage access to this, and they can get some statistics about what's happening on the network, and configure and customize their own captive portal solution, and we make it as approachable to an end user as possible. Much like Purple or Encapto, this is our implementation that we give our customers. And basic usage statistics, the type of devices, things that we can do that vendors don't particularly want to integrate with hotel proprietary PMS systems. We do that at our gateway, and then we provide an interface into that. Probably the biggest thing that's used is just sort of a statistics about how the network is performing, the bandwidth utilization, and then the device SNMP monitoring that we employ. And after that, it really comes down to how many support calls are we taking, because that's the best indication of how the network is working. And we provide just a full transparency in our solution to show, we integrate right with our ticketing system, and we can show our customer, how many support calls we've taken, and that kind of leads to probably the last slide, Jayton. This is going back 6 months, and from a hospitality standpoint, on the very first deployment of a very large Cambium network by our standards, with a lot of complex parts, moving parts, ePMP and connectivities, and something that was completely recabled, right after on the heels of a hurricane, in 6 months, and that's through the summer, a high season there, 71 tickets. And when I was looking through this for the presentation, a number of those tickets are really from 1 or 2 people that have some strange devices that don't like spaces in their SSID. For us, that's the message that is resounding. You're in hospitality. Your margins are really determined by the number of support calls you take, and that's a key metric.
Thank you, Sam. So I have we've got about 10 minutes or a little less than 10 minutes now, and really this is getting a lot of audience interest here. I've got one question, one tough question, which I'm going to throw your way. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but Sam, I know you can take this. So there's an audience here, member here, who asks, you've got an ePMP link supplying to the buildings. I'm not sure if you use that for illustration purpose or if all of the buildings were supported by ePMP. What is the average bandwidth that each of these rooms get? Because the questioner is worried about the limited bandwidth on the ePMP backhaul.
Yeah, the site is a 200 meg. So the links are performing at least 100 megs. So it's 100 megs, between the base and each unit at least, and the link is 200 meg up. So that's what we're looking at. That's kind of ballpark what we're looking at there, Chayton. We could improve this. Go the links between buildings, and go to Cambium have a nice millimeter wave solution I hear in the works, but that would be a next improvement. But we'd probably wait till they decide to upgrade bandwidth. Right now, with the profiles that they've employed, it hasn't been a big issue for device connectivity, but it's something that we definitely monitor. Does that answer?
And what do people typically do? Can they still stream a Netflix video in these guest rooms?
Oh yeah, it's basically the Wi-Fi. In the way we look at it now, is it's the entire entertainment system. It's video. You just have to prepare for the worst in hospitality, that it's all video. And if the video is not working sufficiently, the first people they blame are the Wi-Fi vendors. So Yeah, Netflix, video, YouTube.
We're the face of internet connectivity when it comes to the devices.
Sorry, say that again.
I said whether it's the backhaul or anything else, what people see in the rooms is really, their report is that the Wi-Fi is not working.
Exactly. And like one of the reasons it was compelling about doing the deal with Superloop is they're committed to 10 gig circuits, and across some of our very rural service locations in Australia, 10 gig just sounds like just amazing, and that's a key benefit of partnering with an ISP in this regard. Whether it'll ever help us out in the U.S., that yet remains to be seen, but that's kind of direction we see things going, more to the 10 gig link, and
Thank you. We have another audience member. This is a question for Chris. Chris, on your buildings, what's the typical, is there a way to characterize what is the speed per room that you offer to your clients?
Yeah, so we have 3 offerings. Actually, I take that back. We have 4 offerings. Our base standard offering is a 7 meg down, 1 meg up per device. So if a resident has, and again, I say per device, so that's not shared across the resident's device. So each resident unit has its own set of authentication credentials that they MAC off their device with, and then by each MAC we limit it by that bandwidth. And then we have upgrade packages. We find the 7 to talk about the streaming. Of course, that's what it's all about today, with cutting the cord and all the streaming services out there. We offer a 12 meg upgrade per device package throughout the campus, and then we also offer 2 in-homes, a 25 meg, 25 by 2, and a 50 by 5 in-home, where we then install the AP, because trying to guarantee, being that this is a bring your own device environment, trying to commit anything more than 10 or 12 meg around a campus is risky, because we don't control what devices are being used, and we have to work to get the access point closer to the end user devices.
Thank you. I think we're coming to the end of our time slot here, but let me see if we can take one more question. This might be an open question for both of you, Sam or Chris. Do either of you deploy any Wi-Fi mesh in this deployment or other deployments? And can you speak to when you use Wi-Fi mesh versus when you use something like ePMP?
Yeah, I'll take it. Our attitude early days was do your best and mesh the rest. We've abandoned that philosophy completely and try never to mesh. I particularly hate mesh. There are situations where it is useful and it helps extend some coverage, but from a support standpoint, it's awful. And I particularly hate mesh. I know I might disagree with some of my engineers who really want to fight me on running a cable, but our solution to mesh is ePMP. I'd rather do ePMP than mesh. That's just our attitude and yeah.
I concur 100% with Sam.
Okay, and I just want to promise that wasn't a setup question. that was indeed asked on the webinar. But thank you for that ringing endorsement of ePMP. So with that said, we're coming to the end. I know we couldn't get to everybody's question on the webinar. What we'll do is we'll compile some of these questions, and Sam and Chris, I'll reach out to you with some questions that kind of came in the context of what you were speaking. And what we'll do to all of our audience is we'll compile these answers and send them out to you. So with that said, thank you for your valuable time. I know you've got a lot of things going on, so we really appreciate that you're out here spending your time listening to what we're doing. And if you've got any questions that perhaps you'd like to still get answered, please reach out to us. You can contact us through the contact me button on our website, or you can send your questions to our marketing@cambiumnetworks.com. So with that said, we hope to see you on another webinar really soon. Stay safe, and wishing all of you a very productive week. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for your time.